Good morning, class. I want to take just a few moments here in class this morning. You'll notice we kind of ran out of time, and I was hoping to discuss and address the reading that you had for today. Kevin Riley, the editor of our primary reader, actually wrote today's article, today's essay, called Cities and Civilization. And I think it's really important for us to understand that the emergence of civilization, which we'll be talking about the next few days, was really a critical moment in human history. And I think it goes without saying that it was a critical moment, but I want you to sort of appreciate some of the critical changes that happen when we start to see the long, slow, the thousands of years of agriculture during the Mesolithic era as it's being practiced, perfected, and giving rise from the Neolithic villages, which were small sort of sedentary gathering spaces of people, flourish into the cities that we start to associate with civilization as it begins to merge, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. Okay, so the challenge, and I posed this as part of your reading question with last night's material, were in what ways is the emergence of cities a positive thing, and in what ways is it perhaps a negative thing? Now, this of course assumes that everyone is going to interact with this information a little bit differently. Some people, what one person might find to be a positive development about civilization, another person might find negative. The purpose here isn't necessarily to come to an agreement, but to have a critical discussion, to be able to address ways in which change could be perceived as both good, as either good or bad. And so first off, technological advance. And so in the article that Riley writes, he's talking about how things like irrigation technologies, the ability to use tools to dig trenches, to divert water. Indirectly, there's the relationship of metals are going to be smelted, which allows for higher technology tools. We're no longer stuck with wooden tools, but we can use tools such as bronze to drive some of these technological innovations. Things like plows, things like harnesses, where we're going to be able to use animals. We're going to be able to utilize a lot of new developments to benefit the ability of agriculture to produce for its people. Now, this is, of course, closely related to a discussion we had in class today about surplus, right? Technology, the greater use of technology can contribute to a higher level of surplus. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think a lot of people would probably argue that's a good thing, right? That technology is something that allows people greater efficiency. They can meet their needs with less work, less output involved. But one perhaps unintended consequence of technology is that it's also going to give rise to class. So in the Paleolithic world, that world when people were largely hunters and gatherers and engaged in a nomadic existence, essentially there was a rough equality between members of various clans or tribes. As I mentioned yesterday, perhaps a little preference for the elders, those who were considered to be wise and an important source of judgment in reaching the decisions that the clan might need to make. But generally speaking, the Paleolithic society was one that was egalitarian. It had a rough equality between individuals. And I've already mentioned that gender distinctions, the differences between men and women, and the social power that they enjoyed, tended to have pretty similar social power in the Paleolithic world. Now that we're giving rise to civilizations, we're going to start to see this change. And of course, class will emerge, largely because those individuals who are capable of harnessing technology, bringing technology to create better irrigation strategies that result in greater surplus, people who are capable of maintaining the predictability and regularity of the harvest, those people are going to start to be associated with greater power within the early civilization history. And so class starts to be an issue. Is that a good or a bad thing? Well, I'll leave that to you. We still have class today, right? We have groups of people that tend to have more, both in terms of wealth, but also in terms of power. And we have groups of people who somewhat predictably have less in terms of wealth and power. Religion. So religion in Riley's discussion here, if we think about the polytheistic religion, which is essentially what the religions of ancient Mesopotamia and to some degree ancient Egypt were. It was a belief in many gods. If you listen to Riley, his discussion seems as though religion in some ways was an effort by which the priests, oftentimes in close relationship with the king, could continue to assert their authority over the rest of society. It's a somewhat cynical view but it suggests that those who could control or communicate with the gods would be given a much more powerful role within society. And of course, at least in Mesopotamia, where waters and floods and things were very haphazard, they could happen very quickly, it would seem perhaps important to the common people to have priests who could intercede or communicate with the gods to hopefully satisfy them and allow them to bring better things to the people as opposed to natural disasters and tragedies. Authority, of course, that kind of goes without saying. The king is going to have authority in part because he presides over a city or civilization now that is able to harness the water toward growing crops, which meets the needs of the people, which satisfies the needs of the people, which satisfies the people in general. I'm speaking in simple terms here, but authority is going to be really critical, and many of the kings and also the soldiers, the enforcers of law are going to now have greater strength within the early civilization society because they can deliver. They can create stability, enforce the laws. The stability allows for greater security for the people, and the people are by and large, it seems, convinced that this is worth the trade-off of being subject to things like laws. The security is, in fact, an ideal benefit, and we've spoken about that. Variety and creativity. I'll ask you, how do cities contribute to variety and creativity? Part of this has to do with surpluses. Surpluses allow for specialization. If you have people specializing in different undertakings or professions, it allows for greater variety, right? If we all are tasked with growing our own food and then doing whatever else it is in our life, making our own clothes, making our own sandals, what have you, we're probably not going to have the higher quality and higher variety that can come from a city. So the acts of surplus creates specialization. Specialization contributes to variety and creativity. Good or bad? Maybe good. I don't know. Writing, of course, writing is important when you come into the cities of the early civilizations. Record keeping becomes very critical, and this has a little bit to do with class and authority as well, but those individuals who are capable of being educated to such a level that they can write and record things like laws or record trade agreements, the amounts that one trading party owes another trading party, there's tremendous value associated with this. And so when some people's skills are valued higher than others, it gives way to things like class differences, gives way to authority differences. Okay, so writing is going to be critical. And writing also, as Riley suggests, it changes the way in which the average person thinks. In a Paleolithic world, it would have been the verbal and thus audio that would have been very important, right? You hear lessons, you hear stories about how you are supposed to behave from your elders, perhaps while sitting around a fire. You learn orally through your ears. Now, there's going to be, of course it's slow at the beginning, but there's going to be a growing segment of society that learns through written expression. And if you can learn through your eyes, you have an inside track, because you don't have to be right there with the smart person. You can read what the smart person has written and left in his or her path. And generally it was his, because we're starting to see the birth of patriarchy along with the earliest, along with this transition from the Paleolithic to this new agricultural-based civilization. Money, this helps facilitate trade, and this is going to be important so that you can use your wealth somewhat flexibly. If you think about it, if you just have to trade using in-kind goods, meaning I trade my wheat for your candles, there's a sort of clumsy transaction. If I can convert my candles into some form of wealth, whether it's shells or beads, later on it will be coins, then I can more efficiently and easily participate in trade. And then finally, I don't want to understate, this is perhaps one of the most important changes that's happening. With the city comes anonymity. In the Neolithic village and in the Paleolithic world, everyone was known rather well by their immediate family, their immediate tribe. In the city, we can now, as people take on an urban existence, the emphasis upon the individual and his or her character becomes less, and one can live more anonymously, meaning in a way where fewer people know you. As long as you obey the laws, as long as you pay for your goods, people really don't care about who you are. And of course, today you can even look at an urban versus rural experience and note that people in New York City are far less known by the people around them than, say, those people who live in Prescott, Washington. Okay? With that, I'm going to stop. Thanks for letting me, I didn't want to skip over this without giving it some attention. There it is. Enjoy it. If you have questions about this, you can bring it up to me in class tomorrow. Thank you.